Airtech Mod Soldier here, and I am back to talk about The Bad Batch, Season 3, Episode 4, and my thoughts on this episode. A very bland episode. Again, we're super focused on Omega again. I like the fact Crosshair kind of challenges Omega sometimes, and Omega, can be smart herself. By the end of the day, I just can't believe they've gone so quick with putting Omega back to what she was in all the other seasons. I think this is a massive missed opportunity for the Bad Batch, and it's pretty obvious that they just wanted to get Omega back to the Bad Batch because they didn't want her to be excluded from the show, and I think that's just stupid. You could have had so many interesting stories with Omega still being in that fucking lab, talking to the clones that stayed loyal to the Empire, finding out why they stayed loyal to the Empire, finding out more details about the female clone, maybe finding out why there's such things as female clones. The amount of stuff they could have done with that storyline and just threw it away just to have Omega just be what she was the last two seasons is just ridiculous. And the fact it didn't even last a week until Omega was back with the Bad Batch, that is ridiculous. I am absolutely disappointed with this show, and I didn't even think that was possible. Why did they ruin such a potentially interesting story arc with Omega? There was an opportunity there, and they just wasted it because they didn't want Omega to not be with the Bad Batch. And that's what I mean. This show is constantly going down the wrong pathway. From the beginning, it has been going down the wrong pathway, the wrong storylines. The focus has been on way too much on Omega, not on the fall of the Republic, not on how the Bad Batch could have been used. It's just been, well, we have this fucking Omega girl who's going to be the fucking key to everything. Quite literally now. I'm just gobsmacked. You didn't even get a week of Omega being a fucking prisoner. You had a couple of 2 episodes and then she was free. And in this episode, apparently she's amazing at gambling. Wow. Just fucking wow. I am disappointed with this show. I am disappointed. Again, I can't be massively disappointed with Lucasfilm because, again, I've seen the last 5 years of their shit and it's been terrible all the way through. This show, God, I'm just disappointed. The episode as a whole, there were interesting parts, seeing the stormtroopers wearing a different kind of uniform, or at least something covering their armor, seeing, the corruption in the Empire. That's an interesting story if they developed it, but it was just quick, done. We're over it. The pacing issue is also a problem. The whole episode was just rushing to get Omega back to what she was in the first couple of seasons. And that is just disappointing to me. So what would I give this episode as a whole? I can't go any higher than a 3. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't that interesting. There were parts that you could point to say would have been good to go into more detail about. That would have been good to go on in more detail about the planet we were on. But no, it was just rushed. So a 3 out of 10. I'm not expecting much from this season. I think it's just going to be a rushed job. Get Omega to the end point, get the Bad Batch to the end point, and then end it. Again, that's the biggest reason this show is ending, because they just don't know what to do with it. So, let's go to spoilers now. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So, the episode starts off with Omega and Crosshair on the shuttle. It's severely damaged, so they have to drop out of hyperspace and crash land on some backwater planet. They crash. Crosshair says that he saw a town with a spaceport, close by. So they head into town. They then realise it's controlled by the Empire, with a bunch of stormtroopers wearing some cloth over their armour. And Crosshair's he wants to kind of head to the spaceport straight away and fight his way onto a ship and then find, Hunter and Wrecker. But Omega tells him no, they can't just walk through a town in their Imperial, garb. So they grab some clothes and then they head off to the spaceport. When they get to the spaceport, it's pretty severely guarded by the Imperials. And again, Crosshair wants to use his blaster to blast through all the stormtroopers. But Omega says, let's try a different approach. By the way, didn't the Empire ban people from having blasters? And yet you have Crosshair walking everywhere with 2 blasters in his bag. It kind of seems like, wouldn't stormtroopers question that? That kind of seemed weird to me, that they're just allowing this guy walking around with 2 blasters in his bag. It seemed very weird. Anyway, so Omega goes up to the port person, or the Czechia person, I don't know. And she kind of, what they would call slyly, tries to bribe the person. She says they haven't got any ID, but they need to get off the planet. And so the cashier person is, yeah, I could do that. I can accept the bribe, but it's going to cost you 30,000 credits. So Omega is taken back by this because that's a lot of credits. And the fact that, Crosshair and her don't have any credits. I'm not sure what the plan was for Omega. I mean, you were going to ask to give her a bribe. I mean, at the end of the day, you realise she's probably going to, take money, right? Like, you're very surprised about the amount. I get it, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to need to find a way to make money without the Empire paying for your food, without the Empire paying for everything. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a Crosshair kind of pulling Omega aside and saying, listen, we're not in the Empire anymore. We need to find cash. Like, trying to take control of the situation. But it seems like Omega is the dominant person here. She takes full control of the situation. She tells, Crosshair the plan for everything. And maybe it makes sense to a certain point because she has been on the run with Hunter and Wrecker. I mean, probably. And Crosshair's been with the Empire, so I would have loved to have seen that a bit more. Like Crosshair kind of talking about the fact he's not a soldier anymore, that he's out of the Empire. Kind of a fish out of water story they could have done here. But no, it was just super focused on rushing to get Omega back with Hunter. Again, the biggest problem with this show. Super focused on one character. So Omega heads off into town and finds a bar where she sees people are gambling on cards, and apparently Omega is just super fantastic at, this card game, because she beats some Trandoshan, and then you see an Imperial officer walk through where it looks like, is he going to cancel the game, or is he going to arrest Omega and Crosshair? No, it turns out he's a corrupt Imperial who's looking for his cut of the bar's sales. Now, this to me could be, again, an interesting story. A local town is being literally controlled by a corrupt Imperial, governor. Where we could have done a story here. Maybe the local towns are kind of fed up with the Imperials. Maybe they want an uprising. Maybe Omega could have led some sort of, and Crosshair could have led up some sort of, fight back. Get rid of the governor and, free the town from the Empire. A little story. I know that it would pretty much break a lot of canon, but this is, Lucasfilm under Disney. So canon doesn't really matter anymore. Maybe we could have seen that. But weirdly, the town seems absolutely fine with the Imperial being corrupt. Then it turns out I think the majority of them are fucking corrupt. So again, we could have gone into detail about that. Maybe found out what the hell the town was called. Maybe found out what the rules are of this place. But no, we didn't. So the Imperial sees Omega playing cards and decides to play the game himself. I know the game's got a special name, but I've completely forgot what it's called. So the Imperial sits down, challenges Omega to a game. Turns out she beats him, takes his money, and when she figures out that she's made enough to pay the bribe, she pretty much signals across that they're going to head off to the spaceport now and get off the planet. Oh, also the Imperial sent away Omega's dog and told the dog to wait out. Well, he told Crosshair to take the dog out and leave it outside for a bit. So whilst Omega is, collecting all of her credits and heading out the door, the Imperial tells her it's illegal to gamble and that she needs to pay a 10,000 credit fine. Crosshair kind of looks pissed off about this and tries to step to him, but Omega stops him and just says, "We'll pay the fine. We've got enough credits to do both, that's fine." So they pay the fine, and when they try to head off to the spaceport, realising they have 35,000 credits, they got a little extra to do what they like with, but they can get off the planet now. Until it turns out Batcher the dog has been kidnapped by somebody. Then this kid tries to blackmail Omega and Crosshair to get some credits out of them by saying he won't tell them where the dog is until they pay a fine to him. He tries to get 10,000 credits. Crosshair grabs him, and so he puts it down to 5,000 credits. Omega pays it, and the kid tells them the Imperial kidnapped the dog. I mean, pretty fucking obvious. I mean, I don't know why they felt like so confused. Like, who would take the dog? The Imperial, who is corrupt. Come on now. It's kind of easy. So they head off. Well, Crosshair says, "Let's head off to the spaceport and get out of here." Omega says they can't leave Batcher. Batcher helped them escape the Imperial from the Imperials, so they they should do the same for her. And Crosshair doesn't agree. He thinks it's a waste of time. It's only a dog. So Omega just throws him the credits and heads off on her own. But Crosshair realises, don't be a dick. So he heads off and helps her. And when they sneak into the base, by the way, the base that has got tons of animals that are being collected for some reason. They don't really explain why. Whilst they're trying to sneak through, the Imperial has kind of realised who they are because his troopers found the wrecked shuttle. He sets a trap for them, and when he springs it, tells Omega to hand over the credits and tells them to surrender. And Crosshair doesn't. Omega tells Crosshair to act like himself. He fires his blaster, kills a couple of stormtroopers. Then Omega releases all the animals, which starts a stampede in the base. And then Omega finds Batcher. They then steal the cargo ship that the Imperials were using and fly off. Oh, and the corrupt Imperial officer gets eaten by some octopus thing. And then the episode ends on Omega sending a signal to Hunter and Wrecker to meet in a certain place. They make it there, and Hunter and Wrecker see Omega. Omega cries when she sees them. You get this kind of heartfelt moment between them, and the episode ends with Omega telling them that Crosshair helped her escape, with Crosshair walking off the ship. And that's how the episode ends. Again, I say a massive missed opportunity with having Omega as a prisoner. they were just rushing to get her back to her place because they couldn't have the Bad Batch show continue without Omega being a significant part of the show. So I just think that's just poor writing. You could still have Omega in the show. She could still be a big part of the show. You didn't need to put her back in with the Bad Batch. But that's what they decided to do. Just disappointing. It just seems like a rushed job. And yeah, it's a shame. Massive shame. And that's the end of my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. And if you have a comment, leave it below and I'll try to get back to it. Entertainment World Soldier. Bye.